Intergalactic Council ruling XXT 73.B, Section 7. In the year 2140 AD, all intergalactic disputes must be settled by a duel to the death. All duels represent the final and binding decision between the galaxy's superpowers. You represent the Federation's greatest hope of winning the war against its enemies to regain control of the intergalactic traffic lanes throughout the universe. I was out on another one of my classic video game scavenger hunts and came across this cartridge called Death Duel for the Sega Genesis. And before I could even say the words, "I'd like to buy Death Duel," I had already bought Death Duel because the game cartridge has a giant robot facing off against a giant monster with laser beams, and it's called Death Duel. In all fairness, I wasn't expecting much for the $2.50 that I paid for Death Duel, and after seeing the title screen, I thought this game was going to be an awful cheesy mess. But then I started playing it. Death Duel is actually a lot of fun. It looks so goofy, yet this game is highly enjoyable, requires a bit of strategy, and it's just simply entertaining. In some ways, this game is like a bad movie that you watch because it's so bad that it's good. But in other ways, this game is actually good. The bad guys look ridiculous, the backgrounds look like they belong on a 1970s custom van. And take careful note that the girl that walks out and gives her motivational speech before each death duel is wearing Daisy Dukes with a tank top where they've taken the time to carefully render her nipples. Nothing sells better than sex and violence, and Death Duel has them both, with the addition of giant robots and monsters. That means that Death Duel is the quadrangle of perfection. Let's talk a bit about the gameplay, because surprisingly this game has good controls and plays very well. You move the targeting cursor around the screen with your gamepad, and the 3 buttons on your Sega Genesis controller control your 3 weapons. At the beginning of each duel, at the beginning of each Death Duel, you're given the chance to equip your giant killer robot with various weapons. There's a number to choose from: machine guns, missiles, guided missiles. You have electroshock things that can freeze other robots, and the spinners, which are like grenades. For each duel that you win money depending on how fast you win that duel, and also on how many various body parts you destroy on your opponent. As a general rule, I like any game where you get extra points for blowing up your opponent's arms and legs. The game requires a good bit of strategy to continue on to the later levels because you can easily spend all your money on expensive weapons. Different enemies from the Nines require different weapons to defeat, and also varying strategies. Sometimes you want to blow their legs up first, sometimes you aim for the head or the wings, naturally. And this guy's pretty interesting because his left arm is very powerful, but you can't destroy it first because he can put it back on with his right arm. So you actually have to blow up his right arm to prevent him from being able to re-equip his left arm after you shoot it off. The machine gun is the cheapest weapon, and it's one of the faster and more accurate ones that I use to blow up his legs one by one. Now he can still shoot me with something on his shoulder, so I'm trying to hit that. There's obstacles like the floating brick wall thing that get in your way, and you can explode the pilot of the robot thing with your missile. And I think it goes without saying that the music is pretty funky fresh. As you might expect, the bad guys get harder and harder as you progress in the game, and sometimes you need to buy more expensive weapons to destroy them. So cash is an issue. They give you bonus shooting gallery type rounds in between each actual death duel, where you can try and blow up a bunch of monsters on screen crawling by you, and that gets you extra cash, which is important, so you want to make sure you get good at those levels, even though they're not the most exciting part of the game. In the earlier rounds, I try to buy as few weapons as possible, or the really cheap ones like machine guns, and then for the later bad guys, I try to stock up on the more expensive weapons. As silly as Death Duel might look, the game requires practice, strategy, and for your viewing pleasure, I've assembled some of my favorite motivational statements from the Death Duel cheerleader. If you happen to be defeated in Death Duel, don't worry, because you're greeted with one of the greatest endings of any video game ever made. As if losing in Death Duel and dying wasn't enough, this game rubs it in. Your defeat has brought chaos to the Federation. Your cowardice and betrayal shall be known throughout the stars. Your decaying corpse will be an object for ridicule and scorn. Disgrace will follow your family for centuries. Once adorned and worshipped by all, your rotting flesh will serve as a reminder of the price of failure. Oh, the horrible pain of defeat.